Right.
Good morning.
Hello, everyone. Just getting this ready on YouTube. Here we go. That's it. I've done it. A miracle. A miracle. A wonder of incredible technology. Okay. Great. Oh, wonderful. So wonderful that we're all together. Absolutely amazing. And we're going to have a good learning today from Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag. We're going to focus on that. If we have more time, we'll go to the Zohar as well. But today, I want to focus on Rabbi Baruch Shalom. I know that I've done that already. I need to do share. Share. Right. I'm going to start off with our tefillah. Okay. Right. Okay, let's bring the microphone over so you can actually all hear me. All right. ריבון עולמים ואדוני אדונים, אב רחמן וסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה, בשתחוויה, שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומחיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה, על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ואל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לביניך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח לפני כיסא כבודך קרח ניחוח, ותאציל עלינו אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבן לקשל בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראיננו במה שאנו לומדים, כמאמר נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיני והביטה נפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני תן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לרצון ממפי, וגאל מבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen. כן יהי רצון. Okay, some more people just coming in. Okay. Right. Okay, great. Fantastic. So let's dedicate our learning to the soldiers, wherever they are, and to all the wounded, so they should have a refuah shalema. Now then, let's go to, here we are, Parshat Noach. Here. Okay. So this is teachings from Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag's writings. And Rabbi Baruch Shalom had a special gift of taking the rather complex ideas from his father's writings from the Zohar and putting them into simple language, and especially language of application. Like, how do we take the stories of the Torah or the explanations in the Zohar and bring them into practice in our everyday lives? And he was an absolute genius at this. Okay, so we're going to look today, first of all, we're going to look at all the articles he wrote here, which have been collected here, and we're going to start off with Av v'Tolada. Okay, cause and effect, father and child. Okay, Eila Toldot Noach. These are the generations of Noach. Okay, generations. What came forth from Noach? Noach ish tzaddik. Noach is a righteous man. Ubarashi, and in Rashi it says, to teach you. A moment, let's just get these people in. To teach you that the most important aspect of the consequences of what comes forth from the tzaddik is ma'asim tovim. She'ikar toldotem shel tzaddikim, the most important consequences of the tzaddikim are ma'asim tovim. Like the ma'asim tovim is basically like their children. Av ben, father and son, okay, it actually means cause and effect. All right. Siba musuvav, the cause and what comes from the cause. All right. כשמדרך האדם, כשעושה איזה מעשה, הוא לצורך מטרה. In the normal way, when a person does an action, it's for a specific purpose. All right, which means that through his action, yasig ezo matara, he's going to get a specific purpose. Lemashal, for example, when he goes to work, it's in order to get a salary. So the cause of getting the salary is the work. And through his work, he gets the salary. Likewise, when a person learns some wisdom, the learning is the action. And through that, he gets the title that he's a wise person or clever person or something like that. Ilazot, כשאדם עוסק בתורה המצוות, מה רוצה שיוולד לו על ידי עבודתו? Now, we have to ask, when a person practices Torah and mitzvot, what does he want should come forth through his work? Okay? יש בזה כמה מדרגות. There's different levels. כמו שכתוב בהקדמת הזוהר, and this is a famous piece that's written in the introduction of the Zohar. Firstly, he might want שיהיה לו שכר בעולם הזה, that through his actions in Torah mitzvot, he wants to get some reward in this world. Okay? All right, he wants to get some maybe he wants to ensure his health, or he feels that that way he avoids any suffering in this world, or his children won't die, or he'll have good health, or whatever. Okay, so he feels that if he does Torah and mitzvot, then he'll get a good consequence in this world. All right, maybe when he wants to do Torah and mitzvot, he's thinking about a sechar olam haba. Maybe he's not thinking about this world, he's thinking about what he wants to get in the next world.
Well, the zipper on the bottom one isn't so good. Zipper, I'm going to get you a new cheek.
I think if we can just mute everybody, that would be better. Okay. All right. Okay, thanks. All right. So if you want to ask a question, you can call out or whatever. I don't mind. But if there's background noise, it's bothering. Okay, so he can have a reward in this world. Maybe he's thinking about reward in this world, when he's thinking about reward in the next world. Or he might be thinking something totally different. He might be thinking, I want to do Torah and mitzvot for the sake of Yirat Shamayim, for the sake of having reverence for God. Begin de'ihu rav v'shalit. Because
why the word yirat is used when just before he said that in order that his children will not die, and for this world, shouldn't it be like ahava? It still is yira. So I just feel like this is also like to be fearful, which is also, okay, but it's not ahava yet.
Okay, so it's a good question. All right, let me just finish what I was saying and then I'll relate to your question. Okay. So bishvil yirat shamayim, for the sake of reverence for God, begin to ihu rav v'shalit, because he is great in loving kindness, v'shalit, and the ruler of all, the governor of all, the root of everything. So what we have here is a very shortened sort of quotation from a big piece in the introduction to the Zohar, which talks about the mitzvah, the first mitzvah of all, which is called Yirat Hashem, which is translated as fear of God, as was it Noit pointed out. But the fear of God is based on what basis? Okay, most of us, when we think about fear, think about being afraid. Okay, maybe I'll get punished in this world, maybe I'll get punished in the next world. And the basis of those fears is actually selfish love. That I care about myself, I care what happens to me, and the reason therefore why I'm doing Torah and mitzvot is because I'm actually worrying about what is going to happen to me. Okay, whereas Yirat Shamayim is having reverence for God because I actually want to be in affinity of form with the Creator. And Rav Baruch Ashlag points out that the way to see Yirat Shamayim, true reverence for God, is I'm concerned not to do anything that's going to separate me from my beloved. So you're right, there's a type of fear, but it's a fear which is part of love, okay? And he actually says in the next portion in the Zohar that Yirat Shamayim, reverence for God, and ahava, and love for God, are completely inseparable. It's like the ahava relates to the love for God, relates to the positive things that we do for the sake of God, and yirah relates to the refraining from the negative, okay, which would separate us from God. Okay, but you're absolutely right. Yirah and ahava, when they're for the sake of heaven, are never separated. Okay, so thank you for your question. It was a good one. So the inyan rav v'shalit. So the issue of serving God, like doing the Torah and mitzvot, for the sake of Shamayim, for the sake of God, because he is great in loving kindness and the cause of all, the ruler of all, that everything comes from him, perusho lishma, means that he's serving God for God's sake. Shehu sherotzim lezakot lebchinat masim tovim. So that's the reason why he's doing the actions, and he wants to merit ma'asim tovim. What is ma'asim tovim? Good deeds. Now, I want to just go into this idea of good deeds a little bit more closely. You know, we all have an idea of, good deeds, being kind to each other, helping somebody who's a bit down or can't afford something that they need, and you've got the ability to help them or whatever. But very often, what looks like our good deeds are kind of subtly for ourselves alone. They're kind of like like hire purchase, merchandise kind of thing. Like, I'll be nice to you now, like we do the good deed now, because subtly underneath, I know, or I think, or I want that in the future, you're going to give me a good deed back. Like in general, people like to be nice in society. Why? Because life is easier. If you're nice, then other people are nice to you back. All right. So underneath that sort of veer of good deeds, there can be a motive of actually wanting to receive. All right. And to actually do good deeds simply for the sake of good, of the goodness itself, simply for the sake of God, simply for the sake of being in affinity of form that he gives unconditionally, I have to say isn't so easy. Why isn't it so easy? Because our will to receive for ourselves alone, our innate egoism, our innate desires for ourselves oppose it. All right? They oppose the doing of deeds, even if they're good ones, okay? Unless we can see what reward we're going to get. If we can see a reward, there's no problem. Okay, then the body, the ego is willing to, go up and do it because he knows that even if he doesn't get the reward now, he'll get the reward later. Okay, and he's got no problem with that. But to give clearly and without thinking at all, what am I going to get? But just for the sake of giving, all right? I'm not even thinking about what good feeling I'll get. Just for the sake of being in affinity form with the Creator isn't so easy. But that is what he's defining as a good deed. A deed which brings me into affinity with the Creator, because just as the Creator gives to us unconditionally, so we need to also to give unconditionally. And that's called almanat lashpia, to give goodness unconditionally. Kamo shekatuv, rachash libi davar tov, omer ani ma'asai lemelech. My heart whispers a good thing, and it says, myself, my deeds are for the king. Ma'u davar tov. What is a good thing? So shadam yachol omer ma'asai, that a person is able to say, my deeds, hainu kol ma shu oseh, that is everything that he does, hakol lashpia lemelech, is in order to give unconditionally to the king. And if we give unconditionally to the king's subjects, that counts as well. Okay? To give to God or to give to our fellow human being counts in the same way. And he's not looking at all for himself at any reward whatsoever. His entire reward is that he's able to do deeds which are entirely for unconditional and not for the sake of getting a reward. Without any compensation at all for his work. And for that he does deeds. We find accordingly, what are the children of the tzaddikim? What comes forth from his cause, what he's thinking about, why he wants to do his work. So what does he want that should come forth from his work in Torah mitzvot? That's his children, his good deeds. He wants through his work in Torah mitzvot, they should merit to be able to do the Torah mitzvot for the sake of giving. Okay? Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. One mitzvah leads to the next. V'zeu she'omer, and this is what he says, ikar toldotem shel tzadikim, the main consequences, what comes forth from the tzadikim, what is the main thing that they want to be born from their service, from their labor? only good deeds. On which they said, Barati Yetzirah, I created the evil inclination. Barati lo Torah Tavlin. I created the Torah as the healing for it. Because what happens is when we try to start to do work only for the sake of giving, okay, let's say we all do good deeds. I'm sure all of us do good deeds, all right? Okay? But it's when we start to look at our intentions and we begin to look at why I'm doing this deed, we begin to see that underneath intentions, mostly there's a desire to receive a gain of some sort. And the more we try to look at it, the more we look at it, the more we see. Okay, so we can get despairing. Say, well, I'm never going to get out of this. But we have to say, no. It's true that God created us with the evil inclination, which is the will to receive for ourselves alone. Okay, but I also created the Torah, the divine wisdom, okay, which is the essence of God himself, as the healing spice. Okay, great. So let's move on to the next one. Noach ish tzaddik tamim. Piresh Ibn Ezra. Noach was a righteous man and whole. Ibn Ezra explained, tzaddik, a righteous man in his deeds, tamim, whole, bilibo, in his heart. Bedorotav, in his generations. Piresh Rashi explains, yesh dorshim leganai, v'yesh dorshim leshevach. Some explain this for his detriment, v'yesh dorshim leshevach, and some interpret this sentence as for his praise. Okay? Kibedorot shel rasha'im, for in the generations of the wicked, that in the thoughts of the generation, that it is not worth it to work for the sake of giving, that would be the generation of the wicked. As a guf, then the body, which is our will to receive for ourselves alone, our egoistic, selfish nature, lifamim hu doresh l'shevach. Well, sometimes that body is going to say, wow, that's a good thing. Because his will to receive basically agrees with that. And other times he says, no, that's not right. What the generations are saying. So what does he mean by generations? Rav Ashlag takes that everything that happens in the Torah is happening to us, okay? All right? These are all stages that we ourselves find. So the generations of the wicked are times when our identification, our decisions are with the Dorot Shel Rasha'im, with the ideas of, I don't want to do this work for the sake of giving. It's a real pain. I just want to be like everybody else. And I just want to work and just get a reward for it. Okay? All right. And we identify with our will to receive for ourselves alone. So that would be Doresh L'Shevach. Okay? Saying, yeah, I agree with what everybody says. That's what I'm agreeing with. All right? Sometimes I say, no. That's not the way I want to be. Okay? Everybody else can say what they want, but I want to do ma'asim tovim. Then he's got the choice. to do what we discussed earlier is ma'asim tovim, good deeds. Now, the issue is we can certainly overcome in an action, all right? That's not difficult. Okay, we're sitting with our feet up. We don't want to get up and daven. We're sitting, we don't want to go and help a neighbor, but we can force ourselves, all right? We've got the ability to force ourselves to do an action. But on our heart, we don't have the ability to control what we feel. If our heart feels, sympathy with what, remember Noach lived in a generation of wicked people. If our heart is just going after the majority, which is, I just want to do what my will to receive for myself wants, or even if I do this good deed, I want to do it because I want to get something back for it. Lachen, there's no other thing you can do at that point. Simply increase the aspect of doing practically. And to continue to give actions which in themselves are giving, even if the underlying motive isn't pure. Why? Because actions which themselves are giving are easier to intend for the sake of giving than actions which themselves are receiving. Okay? They're harder to deal with. So Rabbi Ashlag says, okay, we're in the framework of the will to receive for ourselves alone. That's our basic nature. That's what society is telling us. This is what I'm hearing from everywhere, from all over the internet, from everything. We're in the dorot of Risha'im, okay? And a big part of myself, my ego part of myself wants to agree with all of that. Okay, my heart is going after what I'm seeing and hearing. What do I do? He says, increase the actions of giving. Why? Because we are able to overcome our desires when it comes to an action. We can force ourselves. And sometimes that's all you can do. Is just say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Get up and force yourself. All right? But the feeling in our heart, what do we do about that? We have no control over the feeling in our heart. What we can do is levakesh me'Hashem sheyiten lo lev acher. We can ask God that He should give us a different heart. As it's written, v'taheh libeinu. And we ask God to purify our heart. Okay? That's the answer. Okay? How do we get to giving unconditionally? By doing actions of giving, even if the motive is not yet clear, all right? And asking God to help us clarify our intentions with the words, purify our heart. But if he starts arguing with his body, arguing with his will to receive, he's never going to manage it. Okay? All right? One example that I give, let's say somebody wants to get up early in the morning to daven and to study Torah or something. Okay? And his body's lying there in bed, and the alarm goes off, and it's time for him to get up, and he sort of looks out from under the pillow, and it's dark out there, and it's cold out there, and it's wintry out there, and his body says, listen, I'm still tired, and it's cold out there, and it's dark out there. What's he going to do? Argue? It's all true. Everything that the body says is true. But what you do is you simply say, okay, I hear you, and you carry on and you do what you were going to do anyhow. Because if he starts arguing with his will to receive, he's not going to get anywhere. Why? Because his will to receive is not lying. His will to receive himself alone does not lie. Okay. It just doesn't see the whole truth. And the whole truth is that he's two aspects. He's his Yetzer HaTov and his Yetzer Hara. Okay, so you've got the Yetzer Hara, which is telling him don't get out of bed because it's dark and cold. Okay, and his Yetzer HaTov says go out, get up and learn Torah. Okay, and daven. All right. So he's got but the Yetzer Hara only sees his own portion. So the Yetzer Hara, the will to receive oneself alone, only sees what it wants to see, okay? But what it sees is true. From its own perspective, it's true. So arguing with it isn't going to work, all right? Apart from anything else, it's a very strong force within us. We're unlikely to win it, okay? So what Rabbi Ashlag says is, don't argue with it, do the deed anyhow. And when he becomes a tzaddik from the aspect of the action, then subsequently he will merit, okay, to become whole in his heart. All right. So what does that mean? It means that the Torah shelo lishma can become a stepping stone for the Torah lishma, Torah which is done not for its own sake, then becomes the stepping stone and the way towards Torah for its own sake. All right, by doing the actions, paying attention to the intention. All right, and when we see that our intention is still with a dorsal rishayim, that we're still wanting a prize for it, we say to God, okay, this is where I'm right now. Please help me to purify my heart. Help me to clarify my intention. And through that, just keep trying, just keep doing the actions, okay, and asking God to help. Finally, then finally he becomes whole in his heart, as Ibn Ezra has said. And then he comes to the aspect and God walked with Noach. היינו שבזמן שהשם מתגלה לאדם, מתחיל להרגיש את מציאות השם. When God reveals himself to the person and he begins to feel the reality of God in his consciousness, as ein lo bechira, he's got no choice left. He can't see, he's not got the choice anymore between his good inclination and his evil inclination. אלא שהוא מתפתל כנר בפני אבוקה. He's simply nullified as a candle is before a flame. He no longer hears, he's no longer aware of what these voices within him are saying. Because all are nullified before the light of God. So we find, according to this, that the aspect of wholeness comes about after he has overcome those voices of the wicked within him by doing the action. And his Tmimut, his wholeness, comes to complete all the blemishes that he had in his work beforehand. Because when he's working, okay, at the beginning of his journey, and he's still very influenced by the Dorot Risha'im, the generations of the evil, which he hears within himself, that you should work for a prize or whatever, okay, all right? So that was the blemishes with which he started. Okay, so the Tmimut, that wholeness that he finally gets, comes to complete and deal with all those blemishes that he had previously. And this is what my father of blessed memory said, Tamim hu otiot taf mum. Okay, so that the word Tamim, whole, is the letters of Taf Mum. Mum is a blemish. Sho'erak al mi she'eno yodea לרמות את עצמו. So the תמימות can only come on somebody who doesn't know how to deceive himself. Let me move that out of the way. רואה את האמת, and he sees the truth, כפי ראות עיניו, and the way that his way he see, the way his eyes see. What does that mean? It means that he's not willing to deceive himself. If he's still doing it for the sake of receiving, then at least be honest about it. And then he can pray and ask God to help him. But if he's pretending and he's saying, no, I'm really doing it for the sake of giving, even though he isn't really, then you can't get anywhere. Okay? So the tamimut, that wholeness, comes when we're truthful and honest. All right? And whatever we receive, we get in wholeness. And wholeness also means giving, for the sake of giving. Which is faith above knowledge. Faith meaning that faith is a higher level of giving than is receiving knowledge. So I'll give you a nice little story about Tamim Tiem Hashem Lokecha, be whole with God. And it's a story of Rabbi Avraham Ashkenazi. So Rabbi Avraham Ashkenazi was a student of the Baal Sulam, who Rabbi Baruch Shalom certainly knew. And he lived in Tiberias. And but he was very connected with Baal Sulam and used to go a lot to learn from him. And the situation of the students of the Baal Sulam was, from aspect of financial situation, was very, very poor. They were very, very poor people indeed. And sometimes things just got completely impossible. And also they had hardly enough to eat, and they were also collecting money for the Baal Sulam to print his books. And in those days, ink and paper were not like they are now, very, very expensive. And so they were always in debt, and they never had enough to eat. And when things got really, really bad, they would contact Rav Ashkenazi and beg for his help. So he got a letter like, please help us. So he went along to his bank to see what he had in his bank account, and he had 17 liras. Was it? No, 16 liras, I think it was. 16 liras. So he took the money out of his bank and he thought, should I make an effort and make it up to 17, which I think is the gematria for good, tov? Or should I make it 18 and make it high? And then he thought, what am I doing accounts with God? Just whatever it is, send. He took everything out of his bank account, which was 16 liras, and sent it off. When he arrived at the Baal Sulam's the following week, the Baal Sulam said to him, why did you send that specific sum of money, 16 liras? So he said, well, that was what was in my account. I thought maybe I could stretch things, make an effort, and send 17, which would make good, or 18, which would make high. But I thought, who am I to make cheshbonot with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? At that, the Baal Sulam called out, Tamim tiem Hashem Elokecha. Just be whole with God. And his face changed color and he started to pace up and down with excitement. Tamim tiem Hashem Elokecha. Like no matter what our situation is, whether we are still stuck in our will to receive for ourselves alone, or whatever we are, that we accept everything from God with faith, without doing all sorts of calculations. So I rather like that idea of tamimut. Okay, everybody okay so far? Anybody else got any more questions? Penny gave me a heart. I like that. Thanks. Okay. את אלוהים התהלך נוח, נוח היה צריך סעד לתומכו. So, And God walked with Noach. Okay, so this compares with Abraham, where regarding Abraham, it said, Hitalech lefanai v'tiyeh tamim, walk before me and be whole. Whereas with Noach, God walked together with Noach. Noach had tzad letomcho. And Rashi says that he needed help to support him. What does this mean? The help means awakening from above, okay? Receiving the light of God so that you have the confidence that you're in the right path. That's the sort of help from above. Whereas Abraham walked in front of God without knowing whether God was coming after him or not. All right? That's just going between muts, just going wholeness in God. It's just like going ahead without knowing, without being sure, without feeling anything necessarily whether God was there with him or not. But as Noach, according to Rashi, Noach needed that support to uphold him. The meaning of help is awakening from above. Since there are two types of powers, these are called vessels of receiving and vessels of giving unconditionally. And vessels of giving unconditionally are designated as vessels which we receive through the help of God. Hanikra it aruta de le'ela, which is called a help, awakening from above. She'elion metakenotam, for because the higher one rectifies them. V'nikra b'lashon Kabbalah she'ozen chotem peh de'elion ma'alim et hagalta ve'inayim d'tachton. And in the language of Kabbalah, it means that the vessels of receiving of the higher one raise up the vessels of giving of the lower one. It means the lower stage of the higher world raise up the higher stage of the lower world. And that way they help them. It's kind of like a staircase effect. Okay? And these vessels of giving are called vessels of giving unconditionally, and because the higher one is the giver. When the lower one uses vessels of giving which belong to the higher one, okay, gives them that power. Whereas vessels of receiving are the Yetzer Hara, and all the evil comes from our vessels of receiving. And this is what the lower one ourselves, what we ourselves need to correct. Okay? So, first of all, we need to get the help of God to correct our vessels of giving. And then subsequently, we can ask to correct our vessels of receiving. So basically what this piece is saying is that Noach was at the stage where God was helping him have vessels of giving. It's a tremendously high stage, but it's not a totally complete stage. It was Abraham, of whom God says, walk before me and be whole, okay, had a even further development, which is the correcting not only the vessels of giving, but also the vessels of receiving. So what is that actually in our terms? So in our terms, I'd say like this. Actions of giving, for example, giving money to the beggar, are easier to intend for the sake of giving, all right? So let's say I'm walking along the street and I see a homeless person and stop to give him a coin out of my purse, all right? That's an action which is itself giving. So on such an action, if I start thinking about my intentions, I could do it for the sake of feeling good about myself or ticking off another mitzvah on the mitzvah chart or whatever I think I'm doing. All right, like we talked about at the beginning. in this world or the next world, or I could really intend to do giving for the sake of giving pleasure to the Creator, for the sake of helping a fellow human being, because I care about them. Okay? So that type of action, a giving action, is itself easier to intend for the sake of giving. It's harder to take an action which is in its nature receiving and do that for the sake of giving. Like, for example, somebody wants to give you, honor and appreciation and whatever, okay? To intend that for the sake of giving, like make a fuss of you, all right? To intend that receiving for the sake of giving is harder. So therefore, he's saying that Noach was at the stage where he was able to intend giving for the sake of giving. Okay. We've got time for one more. Asay lecha teva atzei gofer, kainim taset hateva, kafat otam mibait u'michutz b'kofer. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood, make it with reeds, I think it is, I don't know, with the ark, and then you have to tar it with pitch inside and out. The issue of the flood, what's the flood? The waters of arrogance, okay? Now, we were just past the Chagim, okay? The Chagim were a time of, great spiritual joy and elevation, and we get a lot of light during the Chagim. And then we come down with a bonk, okay? Like, it's not so easy. And what often happens is that we start getting attacked by all sorts of difficult thoughts. And these are called the Maim HaZedonim, the arrogant thoughts, the thoughts which are attacking us in our service of God. All right? So what are these Maim HaZedonim? These are thoughts which are is when a person starts to ask the question, who is God that I should listen to his voice? Like Mi Hashem Lekolo. That's the question of Pharaoh, or the question of the wicked guy from the wicked son from the Haggadah. Mavo dazot lachem. What's the point of doing all this work? Mishnei Eile. These two questions, which are called Mi Uma, we get mayim, we get a flood of negative thoughts, a flood of thoughts which are against the service of God. And it happens to all of us at different times. And we simply like feeling completely overwhelmed. That's the flood. Okay? And through this flood of who is God that I should listen to his voice, or what on earth, what's the point of doing this work anyhow? Okay? So in those thoughts wipe out all the existence of a person in holiness. So what do? God says, go into the ark. The word ark is the letters of the word house round the other way. Okay? Because house is the aspect of chokhmah. Okay? And that is receiving the light of God. All right? In oneself, which is one's home. At this point, I'm just like all at sea. I've just got these thoughts just flooding me, these questions flooding me. And every time I try to do something, I get the complete opposite. I get completely flooded with this negativity. Okay, what do? We go into the ark. What's the ark? Bechinat Chasadim. The aspect of the ark is faith. That we go into faith. We take shelter in faith, which is the paradigm of giving to God without thinking. למעלה מהדעת, just giving. מבחינת כי חפץ חסד הוא. It's the aspect of simply giving because God delights in giving. All right? So what actually happens is very often it happens. It's not. I don't think it's an accident that Noach comes straight after Bereshit. Okay, that when we come down from the high of the holidays, we actually find ourselves going whoops, sinking right down into these flood of negative thoughts. So what do? We go into the teva. We go into the ark. And this is it in the meaning of, and you should pitch it inside and out with kofer, that we need that the light of faith is present. That we need the light of faith. And when we're in the light of faith, then there's no place for these questions of who and who is God that I should listen to his voice and what is this service mean at all, okay? And what we actually find if we just focus on our faith and just focus in the, just go into the aspect of giving as much as we can, unconditionally, without asking any questions, without looking to see what we get, we find that those questions of who and what simply die down on their own. Okay? I think we've got time for one more. Last 5 minutes. ויך השם וגומר לא הוסיף לקלל עוד את האדמה בעבור האדם, כי יצא לב האדם רע מנעוריו, ולא הוסיף עוד לחכות את כל חי כאשר עשיתי. And God said, I will no longer curse the ground for the sake of man, because the heart inclination of the man is evil from his youth, and I will no longer smite all living creatures as I have done. ויש להבין, and we need to ask a question, איך שייך לומר שרק אמר ברא השם כי יצא לב האדם רע מנעוריו? How can you ask the question why a person after the flood, God suddenly noticed that a person's heart was evil? Well, he didn't know that beforehand. Chas v'shalom, like to say such a thing. V'yesh lagid on derech avodah, and we can look at this in the way of work. Sheyesh shnei sugei anashim. There are two types of people. Yesh anashim sheshayachim lebechinat klal haolam, שהם בחינת כל העולם אומרים לך צדיק אתה, ויש בחינת יהיה בעיניך כרשע. There's people who belong to the klal, okay? Who, and the aspect is if all the world tells you you're a tzaddik, okay? And there's the aspect of be a wicked person in your own eyes. And this is the aspect of telling the truth, okay? Not being afraid to know where we really are. For a person to get to his true destination, he needs to go in the true way. Okay? What is the true way? That he wants to be able to get to all his work should be for the sake of giving. Why is that? Because otherwise God cannot carry out his purpose of creation, which is to give all his goodness to us. Okay? And that's because if we're not in affinity of form, there's simply no connection. Like if God is giving and I'm just busy receiving, there's just no connection. It's like the plug isn't fitting into the socket. I mean, it's exactly that. Okay, so we need to get to how do I transform our basic nature, which is from our youth, okay, which is the aspect of the will to receive. How do I get that to be for the sake of giving? Okay, and for that we were given Torah and mitzvot. That the whole purpose of dealing with Torah and mitzvot, of practicing Torah and mitzvot, is to get to lishma, to do it for its own sake. To be able to do good deeds for its own sake. But we have to begin with Torah which is not for its own sake. In other words, we're told that there's no more to do in the service of God, just to do the practical aspects, and that's it. From that aspect, it's sufficient. Now you can do Torah mitzvot. But to serve for the purpose for which Torah mitzvot were actually given, which is for the aspect of barati yetzirah, barati lo Torah tevlim, lo chashvim al zeh. But are people really thinking about what's the purpose of Torah mitzvot? And it's to fulfill, I created the evil inclination. Yes, that's true, but I also corrected the means to deal with it, which is the Torah. Nobody's thinking about that. Okay? They're just thinking about how much I'm doing. Like, am I doing another page of Gemara, or another page of Kabbalah, or another this, or another that, or another mitzvah? Okay? They get more and more and more strict because they want to do better, all right? But we don't know how to do better. So instead of thinking of why I'm doing the mitzvah, they just think about, more and more strictures, okay? We have chumrot after chumrot, okay? People come up with all sorts of chumrot I never heard of, all right? But the real chumrah is, why am I doing the Torah mitzvot? That's the real chumrah to worry about, okay? All right? Don't worry about if you did it this way or that way, all right? Worry about why I'm doing it. And then this we can understand what the sages said. Like your temple is like the slice of the pomegranate. Even the most empty of you are filled with mitzvot, like a rimon. Okay? And we need to ask the question, why are they called empty? They're empty because their mitzvot are not going into the correct place they're meant to be going. Okay? Like they lack the real reason for which we fulfill Torah mitzvot. Because they're not paying attention to the intention. Why am I doing it? And this takes us back right to the very first piece that we looked at. Am I doing it because I want to gain something in this world? Or am I doing it because I want to gain something in the next world? Or am I really doing it because I want to serve the king? Okay? And if we're not aware of these possible intentions, all right, then we honestly can't move forwards. And what actually happens is, as we try to move forwards, we find that we can't. All right. So what do? We ask God for help. Okay. Or we go inside the ark. We find that after the flood, when a person sees that when somebody's not going in the way of truth, what happens? He gets overwhelmed with these thoughts. Okay. All right, why should I do it? Who is God that I should listen to his voice? The Maim Azedonim. Okay, the question of Pharaoh, the question of the wicked one. Then we see, wow, there's an evil inclination, which we didn't see beforehand. Okay, we only really begin to see the real problems once we start to try to go in the path of giving unconditionally. All right. Beforehand, we thought the Yetzer Hara was, they were simply serving us. We didn't really notice it. Okay. So once we noticed this flood of thoughts that are coming to us, okay, that God saw that a person's heart is evil from his youth. It really means that we see this, okay? Because now we know, okay, that we are trying to make a relationship with God and we're not managing it, okay? So people who want to go in the way of truth, it means that we'll know not to smite all living. It means to show a person the truth. And the knowing the truth is not a curse, it's the opposite. It is a help, because then at least we can pray. Okay? So those were the lessons of walking in the way of God that we get from Parshat Noach, according to Rabbi Baruch Shalom.
Thank you, Yedida.
You're very welcome. I hope you all enjoyed it.
It was wonderful. Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much.
This was brilliant, really brilliant and beautiful, and very, very, very articulately given over, and really so special. I must listen to it again. I'm wondering, how are we able to listen to it again?
Okay, so it live streamed on YouTube. Okay, so I'll put on the WhatsApp group the YouTube channel. But if you just look under Yedida Cohen, it'll be the latest live stream.
Amazing. And also, can we buy this sefer? Like, which sefer is this?
Okay,
I'm wondering if I could even like learn it with my husband. It's just so profound and relevant and gorgeous.
It absolutely is. This is an old copy. It's called Birkat Shalom, Parshat Shavua or something. But there's a new volume. It's now they've done a new set, like a kind of a set, which is called Birkat Shalom. And most of what I've got here is, I don't think that this, if I'll show you, I'll just get the book itself. It's a little book. It's a little thin book like that. I don't think, I've not seen it lately that it's in print, but I'll send you the phone number. You can call them up and find out if you can get a copy. Oh, Yud Horowitz. I could ask him. I know who that is. All right, I could ask him. I'll find out if you can get a copy of it. And otherwise, there's a set called the Birkat Shalom, which is put out by Rabbi Gottlieb. It's a set of 4 or 5 books. You probably buy some of the volumes individually, and you can get the ones on the Torah, which is many of the same articles are there. It's really, really beautiful, really beautiful. I really
on Parshat Shavua, you're saying?
Yeah, there's Parshat Shavua, and then there's also in the set there's also the Hagim as well, and then there's pieces from there's pieces from the festivals. No, festivals I said, but there's from the Gemara, say other stuff as well. But the ones which I find the most useful are the Parshat Shavua and the Hagim. Amazing, mamash amazing. Great, wonderful. Okay, so yeah. All right. So
yeah, it is. It's very special, but it's also the way you give it over. So thank you, really. Thank you for your heart and your time and willingness to give it over.
Well, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
To everyone as well.
Oh yeah, Rosh Chodesh
Tomorrow,
Tov.
yes, tomorrow night.
Chodesh Tov. Yes,
Chodesh
thank you.
Yes, Chodesh Tov, yes.
Yeah.
Rosh Chodesh Tov to everyone, and Shabbat Shalom.
And Shabbat Shalom. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.